Welcome to the College Football Bros podcast. I am Michael Newman, and I'm joined by the brother who is undefeated in life.
That's definitely me, Ryan Newman.
And by the other brother who's still winless.
Wow, that's me, Trey Newman, I guess. I almost jumped right in for Ryan's, but ouch.
Yeah.
Too late. Another L for
Another
you.
L.
On today's episode, though, we're going to go through the projected top 15 teams according to Athlon Sports, and we're going to predict when each of them will suffer their first loss, if any, I guess. You can predict them to go undefeated. If you subscribe to our Patreon, we'll go through the rest of the top 25, so 10 more teams, and we'll also go through all of the patrons' favorite teams. So there's 10 or so more teams to go through there. So if you want to support us, that's patreon.com/collegefootballbros. We'll put a link in the description. We'd really appreciate that. So you'd get, of course, the rest of this episode and all of the bonus episodes we have in the backlog. So consider that. And Ryan, though, let's get straight into it. Who is number one?
Yes, number one, of course, Alabama, defending national champions. When I was going over through this prediction here, I tried to be a little aggressive. I was just trying to think, I wasn't just going by like, okay, what's going to be the point spread and just go only by that. I was trying to pick some upsets and what here, there. So Alabama, I have them losing to, well, they have their first game's tough. They play Miami. Of course, Alabama will be a huge favorite in that game, but Miami's a preseason top 15-ish type team. But I have them losing ultimately in week 3 at Florida. At Florida. I think a lot of people are maybe going to be underestimating Florida this year. We've talked about this on this podcast. We all like Dan Mullen. I like what they have coming back. I know they lose quite a bit on offense, but I think people are underestimating that. The fact that they have Emory Jones, who's been around the program I think this is going to go into his 4th year now. So that's a lot of tutelage under Dan Mullen. So I'm going to say they lose in week 3 to Bama, or lose week 3 to Florida.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be favored a decent amount in every game, but I agree with you, Ryan. If I was looking at this schedule, I did want to kind of be bold here with Bama as well, and I think week 3 is early enough in the year where they might not be in full stride, and I kind of know how dumb that does sound, just considering they've been pretty much in stride for the last 10 years. But I think that Mullen can get the offense rolling, and that can be really the only. I thought about A&M a couple weeks later, but I just feel like I trust the Gators' offense, I think, a little bit more, and they're going to need to obviously score points to beat Bama, and I just think Gainesville is going to be rocking.
Yeah.
And picking Florida, you have the advantage that game is before the A&M game. So
yeah, of course,
the order matters when trying to pick the first loss. If I'm allowed to do this, I'm going to pick that they go undefeated.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to identify which individual game, because of course it's possible that they get upset somewhere along the way, but kind of hard to predict where it will be. I guess
they'll be favored most likely in every single game. So
they'll be double-digit favorites
no matter what.
I think
they won't be double-digit favorites at Florida. What do you think?
Well,
as of right now.
Yeah, as of right now they are. Well, I saw one that's like one's 10 and one's 13.5. So
all right, well, it could be close
around there at least. Yeah. My official pick is undefeated.
Yeah,
for this podcast. For this podcast,
I just feel like they do have a lot of talent, but that's a lot of unproven talent at this point. Mechie's great at receiver, and they have a lot of other young receivers. But Bryce Young will be in his 3rd game. Yeah, the new offensive coordinator. There could be some hiccups, at least a little bit.
Yeah, wouldn't shock me.
All right, so then Athlon's number 2 team, of course, is Clemson, and I'm not betting on them to go unbeaten, but if they beat Georgia in week 1, we talked about that recently, how Clemson is about 10 points better than the next best ACC team at this point. So I can't lock down a team that I think will beat them. So I am going to also kind of go like you, Michael. I'm going to say they go unbeaten. I just think they're head and shoulders above the rest of the teams in the ACC. But obviously, that first game against Georgia is very difficult.
Well, you say 10 points better than the next best ACC team, which would probably be, Miami or North Carolina, right? They don't play Miami or North Carolina.
Right.
So
Well,
at least in the
to
regular
the
season.
ACC title game.
So they're like 20 points better than the next best team they play
True.
on
Good
their
point.
schedule. So
This is Georgia.
yeah, I'm going to say Georgia, though, is the most likely first loss. I will be picking Clemson. Like, if I had to pick this game, even point spread, I would take Clemson. I just trust them. Georgia breaking in a new secondary. Clemson, on the other hand, their defense brings everybody back. I think Clemson is a little bit better to start the season, but I think it's the plurality favorite of most likely first loss. I would say is Georgia.
Well, that's of course. I'm saying they go undefeated as well. After they I think they'll beat Georgia, and then after that, there's just no feasible way I can pick a regional team to beat them. I like to pick upsets, but there's just no. I can't do it with Clemson.
Yeah, if you told me they lost after the Georgia game, the one I kind of looked at was maybe Pitt in late October because it's on the road. Maybe Heinz Field, the grass could be a little weird, but I just I'm not gonna
beat them before.
That.
It could happen. They play at NC State. The NC State could be if Devin Leary's the real deal.
So
you never know.
It's not impossible, but far fetched.
Yeah, if Ucla stays healthy.
Right.
True.
But moving on to number 3 on Athlon's list is Oklahoma, and their non-conference is pretty easy, so I don't see them losing there. Nebraska.
Hey! Whoa!
They get Nebraska at home. I think that's a pretty likely W. Their first conference game is at K-State, who has beat them 2 years in a row, betting against the third time. So I'm going to pick undefeated as the most likely. I say most likely. It's under 50% chance, but I like picking that rather than trying to guess which first loss there will be. Iowa State is the one that if I had to pick them losing would be, but they'll be probably, as of right now, over a touchdown favorite against them.
Yep.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm gonna agree with you. I have Oklahoma go unbeaten as well. I wish I could say Nebraska, but not even close. Not with Spencer Rattler in that offense. There's just no way. So OU undefeated. Iowa State. I think they're going to be better than this year. I like Iowa State, but they control that conference. Non-conference is easy. Got to go OU.
Yeah, Oklahoma definitely should, of course, be better than last year. But in years past, they've shown that they can lose surprisingly. Like K-State the last couple of years, they didn't look good at Iowa State last year. They somehow escaped versus Texas. So I looked at their schedule and I looked for a specific letdown spot. They get a revenge game at K-State October 2nd. They play the next week in the heated Red River rivalry. So situationally, the next game they play TCU. I'm going to call for an upset there. They'll be 6-0.
Okay.
Obviously, they're better than TCU, but I just kind of wanted to look at a specific situation where they could be coming off, 2 weeks in a row.
That's a good pick. I could see that.
So that's a little bold, but there you go.
Hey, I like it. This episode would be boring if we didn't have any boldness, right?
Very true. And I hope we're expressing ourselves well with, like Ryan, you and I bet if we were to pick, you put your life on what Oklahoma's record is going to be. At least I would say. Yeah,
I would say
11
lose
and
one
1
game, but
right.
Can't pick it. I don't know.
Yeah, there's
right.
a lot
the problem
of
is like,
options.
what's more likely, me picking the right loss or them just going undefeated? And I
exactly. Yeah.
So that's why we made
It's a
that
difficult
pick.
exercise.
All right, let's move on to number 4 in the preseason top 25. We have the Ohio State University. And again, I'm going unbeaten. Ohio State is just cream of the crop in the Big Ten, and I just have a hard time seeing another Big Ten team knocking them down. They're head and shoulders kind of. I mean, who's it going to be? Is it going to be Penn State? Is it going to be Michigan? They're not at their best, so I have a hard time seeing it. Maybe they don't play Ohio State, they don't play Wisconsin in the regular season as well. So In their first 2 games, though, they play at Minnesota as their first game. That could be tricky. Minnesota's bringing a lot back. They got a lot of experience. That could give them trouble. And then their second game is Oregon. Oregon comes to Columbus. That's obviously the one where you kind of circle like, hey, that could happen. But I don't think so. It's a tall task for Oregon, I think. So, depending on their quarterback situation, I think it'll be C.J. Stroud. But at this point, it'd be surprising to not have a Ohio State quarterback light it up. So I'm going to go unbeaten with the Buckeyes.
Yeah, this was tough because I agree that I think the game that would be Oregon because it's the second week of the season. But I trust Ryan Day to have that offense just ready to roll. Like, I know they still have to replace some guys on defense as well, but as we sit here today, they're around a 10-plus point favorite in that game, and every game thereafter they're going to be a double-digit favorites. And like you said, they don't play Wisconsin. They also don't play Iowa in the West. So a pretty good draw for them.
They do have to go at Nebraska, though, so
oof.
Watch out.
But no, I agree. I am actually going to lean towards the unbeaten regular season.
3 for 3 there. I'm going unbeaten. If I had to pick a game just like you, it's Oregon, and I feel like I'll probably end up, just for fun, betting Oregon in that game. Just I would. I like their offense this year. If Anthony Brown's the real deal, which I think he can be good, and he's got, I think, really great talent surrounding him. I love their receiving core. Offensive line should be stronger. They lost everybody going into last year, and Mario Cristobal does a great job with that group. So hopefully they can go score for score with them, but.
And Thibodeau on the
what you just
line.
said, though, as far as the offensive line and receivers, I think Ohio State's is even better. Ohio State might have the best offensive line in the country, and then the receivers are great too. So
receivers are the best receivers.
Yeah, exactly. They might have those 2 position groups might be the best in the country, or at least arguably. So
that's why
ultimately
why I'm undefeated.
That's why I don't care about the quarterback play as much, because I know whoever it is going to have like whatever weapons they want to work with. They're going to put up great numbers.
All right, so
that's why I'm sitting on C.J. Stroud. I think I got him at 40-1 to win the Heisman. I feel like that's not bad for the.
No,
I mean, he might
for an Ohio State quarterback.
Yeah, if he's the starter, then I feel great about that.
Yeah, it's a good one. I think he will be.
All right, so number 5, and this is a heck of a number 5 to have, Georgia on Athlon's list, and this one, it's pretty straightforward for me. I have to say Clemson in week 1. They're about a 3.5 point dog at this point, but it's one of the best opening matchups you'll ever get. There you got 2 top 5 defenses, but I think I trust Clemson just an ounce more even after losing Lawrence, because I really want to see if JT Daniels and the offense can do something against this defense, which, Michael, you alluded to it earlier, like Clemson returns pretty much everybody. So that's going to be the test, of course, before I truly buy into the Georgia offense. I think they're legit, but just kind of want to see it first. At least that's how I'm looking at it today.
Yeah, that Clemson defensive line could be ridiculous with the freshmen they've had grow up, and Brzee, Murphy, they're just loaded.
That's
so
crazy.
I'm also taking Clemson to be their first loss.
Yeah, I will say the Clemson as well. But then they're going to go on a run. Some people might be like, "Oh, Georgia loses first game." They might, I don't know. I mean, maybe overreact a little bit, even if they lose by a decent amount. But they could still go on a run after that. Till week 9 is when they get Florida. Until then, it's like, they're going to be huge favorites, I think, in any other of those games. They got, I won't list them, but heavy favorites in all the other games. So I think they could see them going on a huge run until that Florida game in Jacksonville, and that would set up a huge, huge matchup, I think, as far as the SEC East and even playoff picture goes.
Yep. All right, moving on to number 6, we have Texas A&M, and this is one of the easiest ones to pick because A&M's got a great chance to start out 5-0. Their first 5 games are 4 of them are at home. You've got New Mexico, or sorry, Kent State. No, I think it's a W, Ryan. Kent State's a W. You've got against Colorado in Denver, so kind of a road game, but they'll still be big favorites there. Then New Mexico, then Arkansas and Mississippi State. So, yeah, I'm picking them to go 5-0, and then 6th game against
3 of them are at home. Arkansas is in Arlington.
Oh, that's right. My mistake. Okay, so game 6 though, Alabama.
No true
Bengals, Alabama.
no true road game other than Colorado, which they'll be huge favorites.
Not even a true road game, Ryan. It's being played at Mile High Stadium. So can we correct you back on that?
You guys are
All
just
right.
going back and forth.
Hey, well, Michael, hey, you know what?
Actually, Ryan, actually.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Alabama though, first loss.
Yeah.
Alabama. Yeah, there's this is one of the easier ones. Yeah, I think they'll be 5-0 heading into that, and Bama will be the first loss. I agree.
It's one of the weakest non-conference schedules out there at this point. So we're all agreeing on Bama there.
Yeah, they got Prairie View A&M in their conference, out of conference slate as well.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to number 7, a Michael favorite, Iowa State. Good old Cyclones there. This one's kind of tough. I got to say, they kind of have some games where, they're obviously good enough to beat pretty much everybody on their schedule, but then, maybe they're not so great that they can't lose to some other folks on their schedule. So ultimately, I kind of went with an upset pick here. I picked Oklahoma State, which is in week 8. I at some point, I just feel like they got to slip up somewhere. They're going to be probably favorites in that game. And they have tough ones before. They got Iowa in week 2. They get them in Ames. That's going to be a tough game, no doubt. Iowa will be a good team. At Kansas State a little bit the week before. Who knows? That could be a tough one. But I have them losing to Oklahoma State in week 8.
Yeah, I'm looking at it like that Iowa game, of course, is the most difficult. But if they get by Iowa, which they're favored to at this point, they're going to be double-digit favorites until the end of October. I agree Oklahoma State is a worthy opponent, but I'm actually going to go get crazy. The following week, they have to go to Morgantown. It's going to be Halloween weekend. I think that place will be lit. Mountaineers will knock off Iowa State after they start 7-0.
That'll be a nice atmosphere there.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're all disagreeing here, all going with different games. I'm going to say that the most likely first loss
At OU.
is... No.
You're saying Iowa.
I'm saying Iowa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's because the advantage of it being so early. They're of course favored, but they're not a big favorite. 5 or 6 points right now.
Right.
Iowa's going to have a really good defense. I expect a low scoring game, like it always seems to be. Matt Campbell still hasn't beat Iowa, so of course wouldn't be a big shock. So yeah, that's my pick.
Yep. No, obviously very feasible. Okay. Number 8 on Athlon's top 25 is Cincinnati. The Bearcats, their schedule is interesting. They have back-to-back toss-up non-conference road games, actually they're both Indiana teams. But other than that, they're going to be big favorites everywhere else. So the two I'm talking to, though, about are at Indiana and at Notre Dame. And that's a tall order to beat both in consecutive weeks.
Well, they get a bye week.
Well, sorry, in consecutive games for them.
Hey,
Ryan
just correcting you.
is on top of it right here. I like it.
But
Just
But
ready
either
to
way-
pounce on you guys.
yeah, but either way, both those games are, as of now, the point spreads are basically toss-ups. So I know it's kind of crazy to do, but I'm actually going to say they don't lose a game because I'm really not that high on Indiana and Notre Dame at this point. I mean, I certainly, like we said, I wouldn't bet on them to beat both of those or go undefeated, but I can't narrow it down to which one. I mean, it could even, I guess, be random on UCF or Tulane, but I can't put my chips
Pick
there.
one. Okay. What do you think, Ryan?
I'm going to go, I kind of agree. I'm not super high on Indiana and Notre Dame. And I do think Cincinnati is going to be, rearing to go in those games. I think they're going to at least understand, at least what happened to them last year, how valuable those games are going to be for them. So I think they'll be ready to go with those. So I'm going to go to a game in conference where they might have a little bit of a letdown. UCF, I mean, they get them in Cincinnati, but UCF's going to be good. Gus Malzahn, obviously the new coach there. But Dylan Gabriel, they're still going to have an explosive offense. And I think they had a lot of sit-outs last year. It was a difficult situation, especially on defense. I think they can bring a little bit more experience potential back. So I'll say UCF kind of surprises them in week 6.
Okay. I looked to those two Indiana games, at Indiana, at Notre Dame, because I think they'll lose one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, they could win both, but I think the most likely result is that they split.
Yep.
And I'm also not super high on either of those teams. I'm gonna go. I think they're more likely to lose to Notre Dame than Indiana. But since that Indiana game is first, I'm gonna pick that. I'm gonna say that is the most likely first loss at Indiana. Because they're a 1.5 point favorite right now at DraftKings, which I don't know. I don't know if that sounds low or not. I maybe would favor Cincinnati a little bit more, but either way, it's close enough to where it could easily happen.
Yep.
And it's early in the season, so hopefully Michael Penix will, still be healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess he's got to get healthy first, but it sounds like he's progressing well. All right, moving on to number 9. Another easy one for me. It is Oregon.
Yeah.
They start out with Fresno State. They're going down. Bulldogs
Yeah.
gonna get
Got
them.
it.
Hey.
No, week 2, Iowa State at Ohio State. Sorry.
Everybody's going to lose to the Iowa State.
Yeah, they'll be a big dog as we talked about at Ohio State. So that's the pick.
Yeah. I kind of already talked about it in the Ohio State preview. I think Ohio State will win. So Oregon's going to, I hope, I think it'll be a good game. Oregon's going to come ready to play, but Buckeyes is too much. So yeah, I'm going to take week 2.
Yep, a sweep. But like we said, I really do think Oregon is going to give them a game. Like right now, it's like a double 10 to 13 point spread. Like I would pick Oregon at that line right now as we sit here today.
Yep. Agreed.
Yep. All right. Well, let's move on here to number 10. We got North Carolina, Mac Brown and returning quarterback Sam Howell. Their schedule kind of sets up well for them. They don't have Clemson on the schedule. That always nice. They do have Miami, but avoiding Clemson in the ACC, you're good, right? So, and in the beginning of their first game's at Virginia Tech, which could be a little tricky. They do lose a lot outside of Sam Howell.
I think that's on a Friday night as well.
It is on a Friday. Yep. So that one could be a little tricky, but I do think I think Virginia Tech's gonna be a little down. I do trust North Carolina and Sam Howell to get through that. But they're gonna slip up. Like they're not going to be so good that they can't lose to a kind of a below middle of the pack ACC team. So, I thought about Virginia in week 3, but I'm going to move on to the next week where they play at Georgia Tech in week 4. Georgia Tech, they got a ton of returning production.
It's in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, but it's okay. I gotcha.
Got him.
It's still in Atlanta, but not quite.
Son of a gun. Is it really? Wow. Doesn't even say that on FBS schedule. I'm blaming the website.
It's in Atlanta. It's the same thing, but not their stadium.
Wow. You're positive about that?
I am because I realized that after September 3rd against Virginia Tech, they don't play a true road game until October 30th. They do have that game against Georgia Tech in Atlanta, so it's quasi-road.
Right.
But
all right, you win. Well, I'm still going with Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
It's at-ish Georgia Tech.
Close enough.
Georgia Tech's got a lot of returning production. I think they could surprise them. In North Carolina might have some young guys. There's going to be an off game, so I'll say it's in week 4 to Georgia Tech.
Okay, so you mentioned that Virginia Tech game early on. I'm not going to pick the upset, but against the spread, I would take Virginia Tech. That just seems like right now, it's one of those games where I feel like the whole world...
What is the spread, Trey?
Sorry. It's about 6.5 was what I saw for North Carolina being favored.
All right, I probably would.
And I just feel like that's a line where almost the whole world would be on North Carolina. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm reading the room wrong, but I feel like a lot of people would be on North Carolina there. So against the spread, I might take the Hokies, but I'm not ready to take that. So I went with their first loss to be, they'll start 6-0. They get Miami. I know that it's about a 3-point spread right now in the early lines. I know North Carolina just absolutely demolished the Canes last year, but that means nothing at this point. I think the Canes will have a little bit better defense, and Kings should be a full go by that point in the season.
Okay. I kind of looked, they could definitely easily be 6-0, but I kind of looked at this the same way as Ryan, where they're going to be favored in all those first 6 games, but I think they'll drop one. I'm not sure where, but I think they will. And my guess, I'm just went straight to the first game at Virginia Tech. because that spread is not super high. And I think, I don't know, like Virginia Tech last year was hit pretty hard by COVID. I think that really affected their season, and they still were decent. I mean, they were 500 in ACC play. They lost some close games to some good teams. So with Braxton Burmeister back at quarterback, who Justin Fuente at least seems to like. He had him starting over at hooker at one point. I think they'll be one of those teams that's kind of capable of beating anybody, but capable of losing to anybody too. So I'll pick the upset there.
Yeah, all right, that's totally fair. I like it. I just couldn't quite do it. All right, number 11, we've got the Florida Gators, and I think this is a pretty easy one. And now I said again, the criteria here is, even though I kind of predicted the major upset of them beating Alabama, it's obviously the most likely game when I look just at Florida for them to first lose is Alabama. So I'm going to take Alabama here, being their first loss September 18th. The Gators have such a soft non-conference schedule. They got Florida Atlantic, South Florida, Samford, and then Florida State at the end of the year. But I just I got to take Bama.
Agreed. Yeah, that's the easy pick.
Well, I had already picked Florida to beat Bama.
Oh, okay.
So
you're
I've
sticking
got
with
to
it.
switch. That's the way I'm doing this thing. I went with Week 7. They go to LSU, the team that beat them last year. That's where I think they'll get tripped up. LSU's obviously got a ton of returning production. They could make a leap, and of course, it's going to be a huge atmosphere in LSU. I think that could be the one where they slip up. I know that picking against Alabama is a huge one, but I'm committed. I'm sticking with it.
Number 12, we've got Notre Dame, and I would say, secretly tricky start to the season with at Florida State, home to Toledo, and home to Purdue. Of course, Notre Dame fan or just someone looking at it quickly might say, okay, 3-0 easy, but it's definitely possible they drop one of those. But I will also predict 3-0. Having said that, then they have two really tough games. So Wisconsin on a neutral field, and then at home against Cincinnati. So I'll go with Wisconsin to beat them. I think it was a fluky year for Wisconsin last year. They, of course, also hit hard by COVID, which affected their season. Of course, Jack Cohn went down before the year, who's now at Notre Dame. Yeah. But so they had to go with a freshman quarterback, Graham Mertz. I think you'll see him progress a lot with a full off season as the starter.
And a lot of returning people.
Yep, exactly. I like Wisconsin this year.
I do like Wisconsin as well, but I do think Notre Dame will have a loss before then. Notre Dame they just got way too much to replace. I think this will be a down year for Notre Dame. Not that they're a bad program, not that Brian Kelly's not a good coach. It's just they lose a ton. They'll reload next year, but there's going to be some growing pains. I have them going down. I think they'll beat Florida State and Toledo, even though I think those will be competitive games, both of them. But I have them losing to Purdue at home. Purdue is going to have, I like Jeff Brom. I like Purdue. I think they're going to have a good passing game. Jack Plummer. Yeah. I always said that wrong. His dad.
Yeah. I don't think so. But
no, I
sure.
don't think so. No. But they're going to have a good group of receivers, even though they do use Rondell Moore. But they're going to give them trouble. Purdue, they don't have a good defense whatsoever, but I think they'll be able to pass the ball, move the ball in the Irish. It just seems like a game that Purdue will be able to step up in. So I just didn't trust them to beat all three of those teams, Notre Dame. So I picked one, and I thought Purdue would be the most likely.
That's fair. I wouldn't be necessarily shocked, like you said, with Florida State or Purdue, but I also agree with Michael. That game in Chicago against Wisconsin it'll be a tough one. Now, I just think, after us all talk, we're all very, or maybe Ryan and I more so. I won't speak for Michael, but we're all very down on Notre Dame. I'm a little worried. Maybe I'm a little overly harsh on them and not giving them enough credit. We'll see.
Yeah, it's hard to say because the last, 4 years they've done it consistently.
Like absolutely.
They've been that 10-win type team, but 2016 I mean, maybe something in the program has just totally changed, but it's not that long ago, and they were 4-8. I mean, they were unlucky to be 4-8, and they weren't really that bad. But I think that being not so far in the past makes me think that a down season is still possible, and they lose so much, like we just said, that we're not at that. At least I'm not at that level where I treat them like Ohio State and Alabama and Clemson, where I don't care what you lose, you're going to be great. I'm not quite there with Notre Dame.
Yeah. They don't have murderer's row of a schedule either, but it's not easy either.
No. Mm-hmm. And having them at 12 in the preseason, I think, is a little high. I mean, I know they had a really
respect.
Yeah, I know they had a really good year last year, but just based off of what they're coming back, I'm not seeing it. But anywho, let's move on to number 13 here. We had Wisconsin, the Badgers. They have a tough one right out of the gate. They got Penn State. It's in Wisconsin, but I am going to take Penn State. All right, so I'm going to say week 1 right out of the gate. Penn State is maybe getting at least a little bit undervalued, I think, by some folks. I know they're preseason in the top 19th according to Athlon here. But last year Penn State got dealt a tough hand. They had so many sit-outs, especially on defense and major ones. I mean, they had so much bad luck. I still think this is a really good team. James Franklin's a really good coach. Sean Clifford isn't maybe an elite quarterback, but he's good enough. So I'm going to say they'll be ready to go for this one. I'll say they beat Wisconsin week 1.
Yeah,
they could lose.
Totally
sorry, go ahead, Trey.
Oh no, I was just going to say that's a totally fair. I really waffled on Penn State. I didn't not as much Notre Dame, even though I know it's going to be a tough one. So I ultimately said they're going to beat Penn State, and I went all the way down. I think they could be unbeaten. I'm not betting on this, but they could be unbeaten going to October 30th at home to Iowa. I think they'll be 7-0, and then Iowa, they whipped the Badgers last year, and I think it'll be another slug it out game as you'd expect.
Okay. I looked at that early part of the season. Penn State, Notre Dame, and Michigan felt like they could lose any of those 3 games, and the Penn State game is first, and I think the toughest. So, to me, that was the pick as well.
Yeah, that's fair. Now, I think maybe the easiest one out of all of us, or out of all of these teams, is maybe number 14 here, Miami.
Yeah.
Just because their very first game is Alabama. They're over a 2-touchdown underdog. King coming off a knee injury. It's a lot to ask, so got to say Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, De'Aaron King is one of those guys that could put on a show, and who knows?
Not that early.
I don't know. I mean, these days, I don't know if De'Aaron King will be fully healthy, but it would not surprise me at all if he's just game 1, he's totally fine. Like the way we've seen guys come back from injuries in sports lately. We'll see.
It surprised me a bit, but Bama, no doubt about it. There's just it's gonna be a tough one for the U.
And then they've got App State and Michigan State, which neither of which are gimmies. So,
right.
A little tricky. Number 15, the last one here is Arizona State, and the first half of their schedule is pretty favorable. So they're one of those teams that it wouldn't shock me if midway through the season they're undefeated and in the top 10. Of course, I wouldn't pick that, but it's in play. First 4 games are Southern Utah, UNLV, at BYU, who loses a ton, and then home to Colorado. So I think they're 4-0 there. I'm going to pick their first loss at UCLA. I think that game right now would be a very small spread, maybe ASU favored slightly, but UCLA is I think better than a lot of people think, because if you look at the record last year, I think they went 3-4, but those losses were very close. They're number 1 in the country, or not number 1 in the country, but number 1 in the Power 5 in returning production. So I think they could clip the Sun Devils here.
I have to agree with you. Week 5 at UCLA, I think they'll be decent enough favorites in every other game. UCLA has a ton of production coming back. I just, I'm not high on UCLA long term, but I think this is the year at least that they've, this is the best Chip Kelly UCLA team that we'll see, and I think they'll get the Sun Devils here week 5.
I really do agree with you guys on your UCLA sentiments, but I think they can sneak by them. ASU, they're a balanced team on offense and defense. So I think that's just their very next game. They play at Utah. So I think they have a realistic chance at being 6-0, but then Utah would clip them.
Well, they do. Oh, yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
Oh, Ryan thought he
Well,
had a
what did you say
correction
there? Say it again.
Sorry, I was just saying. I was saying UCLA, they play them October 2nd.
Yeah.
I think the next logical game they would lose is 2 weeks. I think it's 2 weeks later.
Gotcha. Rats,
Yeah.
I don't have it.
Ryan was ready to pounce. I might have said it wrong, but that's where I was going.
I thought he said next week, and I was like, no, they
You
have
might have.
Stanford next week.
You might have checked the tape. You might have.
Check the
but-
tape.
I could have, but
Anyway, that'll do it for the top 15 teams. So again, if you want to continue this episode, sign up for our Patreon, patreon.com/collegefootballbros. You will get access to our Discord server as well to talk college football all summer long leading up to the season. But either way, thank you for listening or watching on YouTube. We'll see you next time.
You've been watching the College Football Bros. Be sure to subscribe here on YouTube and in your podcast app for college football content all year round. For bonus episodes and access to our Discord chat, join our Patreon at patreon.com/collegefootballbros. Thanks for watching.